Welcome back to Caddy Corner, episode 47. I'm Austin.
And I'm Caleb.
And we today are going to be talking about how to transition in life. How do you navigate those transitions? How do you not explode when you're transitioning in life? How do you deal with change? That's a lot of kind of the direction that I took this podcast with. So there we go. I never get to the point that quickly. So shout out to me. But we're just going to kind of go through it, how-to style. You know the format. We've done it 700 times on this podcast that we've made like 73 episodes of. So, Caleb, I'll let you take it away. Transitioning in life. Here we go.
All right. Before we get started, though, make sure to rate and review the show if you're listening on audio. If you're watching on video, please be sure to like and subscribe and turn the post notifications on. If you enjoy the show and you know someone else who might enjoy it also, be sure to share it with them because it really means a lot to us. But I digress. And so smooth transitions in life are like super important. And so we both have some key things to keep in mind or think about whenever you're going through a life transition, because they can be super stressful and super scary, but we're going to try and tell you some things to make them seem not so scary anymore. And so first on my list, I have reject new unproductive commitments. So whenever you're transitioning in life, if you're, deciding to take on something new or whatever, it's human nature to always want to take on new commitments. Anytime you see something that could be like a fun hobby or whatever, it's really hard to say no to those kind of things, but those things always take a level of commitment that takes time, effort, money, whatever. And so I find myself always tending to say yes, to the commitments, even if they're super unproductive for me and I don't need to do them or whatever. And whenever I'm focusing on those things, then it's taking my mind off the things that I'm actually trying to get to, the real goal. And so whenever you're transitioning, instead of always taking on something new, anytime you find something fun or whatever, if you know that it's not going to be productive for you, just don't take it on right now, because there's more things that you could be focusing on and more things that you should be worried about within the actual transition, actual life transition, than picking up fishing or whatever.
Right.
So I think that that's super important.
I totally agree. I think that's really good. And a really good way to think about that is just does whatever you're adding to your life for a second time, because whenever you're typically during a transition, something new is coming into your life.
Yeah.
Is whatever new that you're trying to add to your life outside of the transition, is that helping you get wherever you need to be?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time, the answer is no.
Yeah.
Which you'd be surprised at that, but I digress as well. My first thing is something that we say in every single podcast, which is do your research, but the way that I looked at it from this perspective was know what you're getting yourself into. This kind of comes whenever you're going into a new transition, something that is expected. Really, a lot of what I took from was transitioning from high school to college. That's something that I obviously knew was happening. I didn't stumble into college. It's kind of hard to do that. Maybe you can. It wasn't that way for me. But some things that you need to know is you need to know your goals. You need to know what you actually want to get out of whatever the transition that you're going into is. Maybe an example would be you're just graduated high school, you took a year off of whatever, you just worked, you banked money. Now you're going to go do 6 months backpacking in Scandinavia. Hopefully you're going in the summer. Number one, if you did your research, you would. Otherwise, you'd be pretty cold. But also, know what you want to get out of that trip or out of college or whatever. Because if you don't, you'll end up kind of just spinning your tires in nothingness, which is obviously not ideal. And then another thing that you need to kind of know about is the pros and cons of whatever you're also transitioning into. College has got its pros and cons too. It's a big time commitment, requires a lot of brain power. I have a lot of random things that I'm doing, in the nighttime, statistics homework, which is something that most people, especially non-college students, aren't really doing. I would imagine that Morgan over here is not doing very much statistics homework at like 11 o'clock at night.
Shout out to the live audience over
Yes.
here. You guys can't see her, but she's off camera.
Yes.
Live audience today.
Live audience today.
Give us something real loud.
Very good.
That's what I'm talking about.
Very good. But somebody like my grandparents probably not doing any any digital media production down there. So you got to just kind of know what you're getting yourself into. And we've talked about this a ton too. The internet exists. Content creators exist. People who write blogs exist. There's information out there. There's really no excuse to not learn about it. So just know what you're getting yourself into, so that way there's no, number one, surprise, like obvious problems that are going to happen, but also two, there's just less excuses for ultimate failure at that point. So do your research.
Yeah. Also, another thing with that too is you said look up the pros and cons, and I think that that's super important. But another thing too is whenever you're looking at pros and cons, if it's something that you truly want to do, like in your heart you actually want to do, then you're only going to look at the pros.
True.
You're gonna cancel out the cons. It's the same thing if you're buying something on Amazon and it's something that you really, really want, and you go look at the reviews. You're only going to read the 5 stars. You're not going to go read the 1-star reviews. But if there's something that you're kind of like skeptical about, then you're probably going to read
Every review.
Yeah. Or if there's something that you don't want at all, then you're only going to focus on the bad ones, And so it's the same thing whenever you're transitioning through life. If you're looking at like pros and cons of whatever you're trying to get into, then just don't only look at the
True.
answers that you want to see.
Exactly.
You have to look at everything, because there are some things that you just like need to know. There are some cons about some things that if you're not looking for them, then they're going to sneak up on you and punch you in the face one day, and you're going to be like, man, I should have read about this, because I was only trying to look at the good things because this was something that I really, really wanted at this time, So definitely keep that in mind too. My next point kind of goes exactly along the lines with that, and it's just know what you want. Sometimes it's difficult kind of to decide what you want to like take into your life, especially like from high school to college. It's really difficult to like decide what you want to actually get into, but knowing exactly what you want at the time or exactly where you want to end up can make the decision making like so much easier.
Yeah, for sure.
So just knowing what you want, you can easily see, I guess, what commitments are going to be helpful for you, or like what classes are going to be useful for you to take, or like what kind of research will be useful for you to do. And then it'll make it that much more easy for you to achieve your goal in the long run. And then you can make the decision that you need to make instead of making decisions that you don't need to make and like taking steps backwards whenever you're trying to, go forward throughout the whole thing. So
Completely. My next point is to eliminate, and not eliminate, but try to avoid the spontaneity of life that kind of comes up. So what that means is a lot of people, especially like in our age demographic, live this like spontaneous lifestyle where they don't really like plan stuff out or organize their thoughts or anything like that. When you're transitioning, it's very important to kind of eliminate that because you have a lot of other things on your plate, similar to what you said in the beginning. But a good example, which I don't have any personal experience with, but I would assume that it's this way. Whenever you first move into like your new first apartment or first house or whatever, you're going to be probably pretty strapped for cash, typically. You're going to be, budget masters, and that's what you have to do. But if you've got friends who are in kind of the opposite situation of that, maybe they've been like established or whatever on their feet for a while, and they just kind of like, boom, like let's go to dinner. Maybe you need to like chill on that because like money is a problem or whatever. So you just have to be careful with things that kind of appear into your life, especially whenever you first kind of reach that transition, because you need to make decisions that align with whatever you got yourself into. If you're a college student and something's happening, but that takes away from your academic pursuits, then you need to either make a decision to focus on your academics or do whatever. So you have to just kind of make decisions that actively help you pursue whatever you're trying to pursue.
Yeah, totally. The next thing on my list here is maintaining focus. And so to achieve whatever you want to achieve, you have to focus. Like that's just the cold hard truth about it. And a lot of people learn that the hard way. A lot of people get into things and they're not focused. They're not eye on the prize all the time, and then they end up failing on whatever they're trying to get into, and then that's how they learn. But you guys, if you've not had like a crazy life transition yet, like if you're still in high school and you're waiting to go to college, instead of getting to college and learning that you need to focus because you didn't focus, just like listen to me now and do it anyway. Because if you set a goal and you're not like focused and not, I guess, like continuously working at it throughout the whole time, then you're never going to get the traction that you need to like actually pursue the goal. Because one thing about like doing anything is you have to be committed and you have to be consistent. Like that's the one thing that we said with this podcast. We were like, we're going to start this podcast and we are not going to miss a week, and that's like what we told ourselves. And
here we
haven't done it yet, and that's just because like we maintain the focus and we keep the focus on this because we know that to get the traction that we want for this to end up getting to, we needed to post a podcast every week. Now we post 2 every week, and like that's just the way life goes, and it's the same thing with anything. Like don't think that this is just the only thing that you have to focus at if you're like content creating or whatever. Like if you are going to college, then you have to like focus on classes. You have to focus on studying, and you have to focus on passing tests, because at the end of the day, like you're paying to be there and you don't want to pay to take a class twice, And so just maintain focus because it's super important, and in everything that you do, you'll have to focus. Even like whenever you get a job, you're going to have to focus there too. So you might as well just teach yourself how to do it before it's too late and you get screwed over because you weren't focusing.
Very good point. My next point here is that you have to embrace the discomfort. There's a lot of discomfort that comes along with transitioning in any kind of facet of life. Whenever you go from high school to college, in high school, especially like in our case where it's small town, hometown vibes, like everybody knows everybody, and then you go to college and then it's like very different because nobody knows anybody, for the first little bit or whatever. And that's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to walk into a classroom and not know anybody that's going to be there. It's uncomfortable also to like be like the last person to class and have to pick a seat. And then like every table's full, so you have to pick somebody to sit next to. Like that's brutal,
Yeah.
Especially the first time you ever go to a classroom, a college classroom. And so in discomfort though, pretty much in anything in life, there's a lot of lessons learned there, and there's a lot of growth that can happen there. This quote that I saw, and like a similar thing was like, diamonds are made under extreme pressure. And I thought that was pretty cool, which is true, and the point kind of is like you should embrace and really focus and learn from those uncomfortable situations that you are put in whenever you do a transition in your life, because it'll make you better at the end of the day. Maybe not even just in the single aspect that you are working towards there, but it'll affect you across every aspect of your life. So you just have to embrace that discomfort.
Yeah, totally. That's super good. The next point that I have here is maintaining a balance. And so while we focus on the things that we want, then you can't be obsessed with like other parts of your life, But that doesn't mean that you can't think about those things at all. It's just you can't obsess over other things that are going on whenever there's a goal that you're trying to get to, because then it'll end up just taking your mind off the goal that you're trying to get to or whatever you're trying to transition to, and that kind of just takes the whole point away of like actually pursuing a goal or whatever. And so you just have to keep your life balanced, because balance is super important. Find a schedule that works for you, and figure out like what order those things kind of go in. And so I was doing some research earlier, and it said that these are the 4 facets of prosperity. And here they are. They're financial, spiritual, social, and physical. And so those are all the things that you have to balance in your life to be prosperous.
I have 1 left. So if you want to go through the rest of yours, whatever, how many do you have left? 2 left?
2.
Okay. I can actually just rip mine because mine's pretty long, so it's fine.
Okay.
My last point for transitioning in your life is you got to get better with every transition. Basically in the same way that we've made 47 podcasts, and we've gotten theoretically better with every podcast. In the same way that you have shot a basketball 700,000 times, and you've gotten better theoretically with every time you've done that. Repetition builds a lot of skills. That's how sports work. It's how pretty much everything works. And so you'll probably transition more than one time in your life, because if you didn't, then you would have never made it out of like elementary school. So you have to just get a little bit better with every transition, and it's a lot easier, I think, to do that like high school to college and then out of college. Those two transitions, high school to college and then college to world, are two very important transitions that you can learn a lot from. A lot about yourself, a lot about the world that you occupy, a lot about how your life is going to kind of turn out. And so you also kind of in those transitional periods, you can look back at the other times that you've had to do similar things in your life. I'm sure that whenever I leave college or whatever, I'll reflect on high school me going to college and see kind of how much I've grown or how much different my life is or how similar these situations are, because those will come up too. And you can obviously also learn off of other people's transitions that they've had as well. But you also have to be able to use transitions as an inspiration to build strong habits. And we've talked about that plenty of times on the podcast, so I won't go down a build strong habits for your life rabbit hole. But anytime that there's a change, anytime that there's kind of another thing, this is the reason why New Year's resolutions work. It's a new year, so I'm going to make new habits because it makes sense, in the same way that I just moved from my college dorm into an apartment, so now it's time to build strong habits off the back of that. So transitioning can be a tool, and that's very important to keep in mind. And you just have to get a little bit better with every time that you transition.
Yeah, that's super good stuff. I'll just hit these two real quick. My next point is anticipate unexpected events. If things are changing in your life, you're going to make mistakes and like things are going to happen, and so just expect that and don't like get so caught up in like mistakes or whatever, because I've said this before and I don't remember who I heard it from, but I heard it from somebody one time, and they said that 99% of inventions were like invented off of failure, and so it's like you just have to learn from the failure and get better with that. And yeah, that's basically all I'm going to say there. And then my last point here is identify weak points in your life. So to stabilize like a mess up, I guess, quickly, or as fast as possible, I guess, you have to identify the weak points in the whatever you're doing. So if I'm trying to think of like an example. Like an example, I guess, would be if you get like really tired throughout the day and like every night you're like super exhausted, or like you get super exhausted during the day, then the weak point there is like don't stay up until 1 a.m.
Yeah.
So like a very simple kind of like example there, I guess. So just so you can like keep everything like as sharp as possible, then identify the weak points, because like the weak points are going to come up and they're going to stick out like sore thumbs as soon as you start like trying something new. So like look for those, be self-aware enough to realize that like, hey, this is a sucky thing that is going on right now, like I'm not good in this way. Then just go ahead and identify those, work on those, work those out, so then you can like really iron out your process, so then like your life transitions can become smooth, because like you said, like every transition in your life should be better than the last transition. And I think that this is kind of one of those things that can totally go hand in hand with that, because every time you make a transition, if you pick out the things that are like, okay, so I did this time and this is like not a healthy thing for me to do, then next time, all right, let's try something different. So I think that's super important, just to identify them so you could work on them so that you can become more efficient as a human.
Very good. I have two key points, two kind of closing points that I'll hit really fast, and if you want to chime in, feel free, obviously. So the first thing that I want to say here is you have to know yourself whenever you're doing a transition, because knowing yourself allows you to set expectations. There are expectations that kind of already exist whenever you transition into anything. Those are called standards that exist across the board. There's a standard college student. There's a standardized college freshman year. That's why freshman orientation exists. That's why all of that kind of junk exists in kind of the world, I guess. And so those are for people basically who kind of don't have any expectations going into it, whatever. If you know yourself, though, you can set expectations for yourself that then become a lot more realistic and also a lot more attainable kind of by virtue of that. And kind of what I mean is the standard for like the college freshman year is you go to college, you're scared for 2 weeks, you realize that it's not that bad, you make a whole bunch of friends, blah, 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 right? Then let the whole story roll. If, let's say you're somebody who doesn't like to talk to people at all and wants to like sit in the library and do their homework and whatever, right? Then the whole make a whole bunch of friends thing doesn't make any sense for you. And so that becomes an unrealistic goal, and then you kind of get all sad and whatever. So by knowing yourself, especially during these transitions, and really looking inward, you can set realistic expectations and goals through the entire transition, which I think is super important because then you don't get discouraged off of, failing at goals that you didn't want to do in the first place. And also, you then end up developing more meaningful habits and goals and even like friendships and whatever because you're focused and know yourself rather than you're just trying to fit into the mold of whatever you're trying to do, which I think is important.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like I said, you'll just kind of end up a clone. Kind of that's how the clones are made. So, yeah. And then my last point is that I kind of already mentioned it a little bit, but I'll go into a little deeper, is like you have to use transitions as a chance to really rebuild your life from wherever you were before. I personally, especially now, I looked at it from high school to college. I looked at it like this a lot, which was like, all right, my 0 to 18 is kind of over. I'm going to break my whole life down and rebuild it kind of from the ground up, just because I felt like the right thing to do. And that's exactly what I did. And obviously, like I think that my life is a lot better now from like a productivity standpoint. I there's a lot of different elements, but I think a lot of people can learn a lot from that just because a lot of people are scared always to make changes, like we've talked about this a lot, but like like when you go to the gym the first time, it sucks. When you press record on the mic and you hear your voice in your ears, like it's weird. It's still a little weird to hear my voice in my ears. You know what I mean? It's always a little kind of awkward. But once you kind of start doing things that actually better you every single day, and you start doing them with repetition, you start to feel really good. I start to feel like I feel really cool wearing my headphones and hearing my voice. You know what I'm saying? Like it feels good to go to the gym and you're just like, bumping whatever you're listening to in the gym. It obviously varies, but so it's the perfect opportunity to kind of gut job your whole life anytime that you ever transition. And obviously, like middle school to high school, it doesn't really work that way. But I think from high school to college, you can really set yourself up for success by doing that because successful people have built off the back of good habits, and that's all I got.
Yeah, that's real good. That's really good.
Not bad. Let's talk a little bit about this for a second because I think that would be fun. How was your high school to college transition?
It was not bad. It was not bad at all. I think like going to a community college like I went to instead of going straight to a 4-year university is like, honestly, if I could go back and do it again, I would do it every single time because the vibe at Rowan whenever I started there was like not that much different than like actual high school,
Right.
And so it kind of made that transition like a little bit less like freaky, and a little less huge, I guess. And so I feel like it definitely helped me kind of get into the groove of things really quickly. But at the same time, it was like different enough to where I knew that, okay, this is college now. Like I have to work harder. I have to be like I have to have more intent, And so I think with that, it made the transition like super easy and honestly like pretty seamless.
Yeah.
To give a little perspective, I'm more worried about my transition from community college to 4-year university.
I was going to ask you about that too.
Than I was from high school to 2-year like associate's degree.
Yeah.
Community college.
Yeah. What are you nervous about going to Catawba?
Just I wouldn't say like nervous.
Yeah.
I guess it's just like I wouldn't say it's more like excitement, but it is.
Sure.
It's just like,
It's probably both.
yeah, it is. I'm nervous because I've never like walked to a class there before.
Sure.
I don't know where any of the buildings are, nothing like that.
Typical first day stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So like obviously things like that, but like I'm super excited to actually start studying what I'm in school for, I think that that's going to be super sick and super fun, and because those are kind of things that I haven't been doing at RCCC, and things that I could have been doing if I went to Catawba for 4 years. I could have already started,
Sure.
working towards like my actual degree. But yeah, so it's we'll just see how it goes. Take
Yeah.
it as it comes.
For sure.
Except don't take it as it comes,
No.
because that totally goes against what we just talked about
Well,
today.
but there's only so much planning that you can do. That's why I think
Yeah.
that's a good point, is because like I think this is important. I think this exists in every facet of life, which is like you can plan as much as you want, but no matter what, somebody's going to throw a wrench into your pool, and it is
Yeah.
what it is. Like there's just nothing you can do about it, and you have to adjust. You have to pivot, which is fine. That's what it is. But there are so many people who like live by this, like whatever's on my schedule is exactly what I'm going to do, and my calendar is perfectly full of everything, and that's all that I do with my life. And if that works for you, then congratulations, because you have this like perfect, like robot life almost.
Yeah.
But it just isn't possible to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I came home from school today with full intent to like really work hard on a school assignment, like get the whole thing knocked out, and then I ended up having to go hang photos at my grandparents' house, and it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like you just have to pivot like that, and that's just like a stupid example, but you can't overplan. And if that exists, it is even more obvious in transitioning. Like to me, it's hilarious when people think that they like can plan their entire first semester of college out coming out of high school. It just doesn't work that way, man.
Yeah, because
like,
you never been to that college before.
dude.
Yeah,
And you're gonna fail that class with the crazy professor. You know what I'm saying? And it's gonna be awkward to sit next to that person for a couple of days because you've never talked to him before, and there's just nothing that you can do about it.
Yeah.
So, and I just think that you have to be, and we talked about this in the show, but like you have to embrace that discomfort and pivot. Like you gotta love the suck. We talk about that a ton. So it is what it is, though.
I think it does make sense too, and I think like a lot of people, whenever they are going, especially from the high school to college transition, like if you're a high school kid and you've never experienced college before, then the only thing that you have to like really go off of what college is you have like what college looks like in movies, and then like what people have told you about college,
And then YouTube videos,
right?
Yeah.
Or and then like maybe you've gone to a tour or something,
Sure.
but like these are all like picture perfect things, especially like if you go to a college tour. You can't expect the school to be like that whenever you go there.
It's like going to Disney World.
Exactly. It's like they are picture perfect for the tour, so that in like orientation, whatever, to get you to stay, And the same thing about like college and movies. Like college and movies is like picture perfect. Like Hollywood is picture perfect, Things that people tell you about a school, especially if like your parents want you to go to the same college that they went to, they're going to like talk up the school to get you to go there. And so like, to get back to what you were saying is like people want to plan these transitions, is like you can plan, and whenever you plan something, you plan it to be picture perfect, but it's not,
Never.
And like you said, like somebody's going to throw a wrench in your pool, and so whenever you think about it like that, then it does make like a ton more sense.
Yeah.
And so yeah, love to suck for real.
Yeah, man. It's where the interestingness in your whole life comes from what happens that is not planned.
Yep.
It's where the stories get made.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Transitioning in life. How to. Not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad. Thank you guys so much for listening to 47 episodes of Caddy Corner. That is pretty crazy to think about, actually.
Mm-hmm.
We're like a month out from the 1 year extravaganza, which we haven't at all thought about.
I did not even realize it was that close until you just said said it like that.
We probably need to get thinking about that. But thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. If you liked it, definitely check out like every other episode we've ever made. It's pretty good stuff. I actually don't remember what the last thing we talked about was, to be honest, on the main show. I guess I can just go back here. How being a creator changed us.
Oh yeah,
yes,
that was good stuff.
So check that out if you're interested, and also just check everything out that we've ever done. We make good stuff. This is the Caddy Corner main show. It is more self-improvement, lifestyle, informative, educational, if you will. I would say so, but I feel like to be educational, the audience has to kind of dub us that. Because if we're not teaching them anything, then we're not very educational. But I digress. we do this every Friday. It's 8 a.m. Eastern, audio and video. Like I said, more self-improvement, like lifestyle type vibes. And then we do Caddy Corner after hours every single Wednesday, which is more laid-back, kickback vibes where we just kind of talk about whatever we want to talk about for however long it goes. And that's every Wednesday also at 8 a.m. So check that out as well. I'm Austin. He's Caleb. We are back every single week. Click all the links in the description and follow us on like Instagram and stuff and TikTok and whatever you want to follow us on because we make good stuff over there too. With that being said, we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.